you, baby. Room 40, something down there on the left. 408, 404. Start in about a minute. Easy now. All right, I have 11 o'clock. Good morning. How are you? Have you had a good morning so far? Good. Well, thank you for coming to this session. I was a little worried because it's so fun to come to the more rural areas because it's a smaller, more intimate crowd. And Yukon and Union, they do the online streaming for when you get full. And I was like full in lecture halls, and I didn't text on time by like 10 seconds. I'm like, man, now I'm not going to have a big group because you're in here and you're going to be online streaming me. And we're online streaming today. Woo-hoo! So I'm really excited. So we are in Maximize Learning While Meeting the Needs of Challenging Students. Is everybody in the right place? And we have that student in our mind, don't we? We're like, yeah, I know that student. Yeah, everybody's shaking their head like, yeah, I got you, girl. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get started, my name is Janelle Seipert, and I am at the State Department in the Office of School Support. And I am not compliance. I am truly support. I am a special ed teacher. I was in the classroom for 14 years. I did direct instruction reading, co-taught English, and I was the RTI interventionist. And it was all in 7th grade. So my education level is 7th grade for the last 14 years. It's been awesome. And then I went to Oklahoma City for 1 year, and I got to work in special ed as an instructional supervisor. And now my experience is secondary, and my boss put me in charge of homebound private school services in 14 elementary schools. Fabulous, right? So any elementary teachers in here? Fantastic. I worship the ground that you walk on. I learned so much from teachers, and I don't know how y'all do it in one day. So I really liked my 50-minute periods, and I could push the kids away, and I had a break from them. So great job. Kudos to you guys. And then I followed my boss up, and we went to the State Department, and I've been with school support for 2 years. And I have 65 schools that I get to work with, right? How do I do that? I drink a lot. We're online streaming. Oops. So I'm just kidding. Well, kind of. So I have 65 schools that I get to work with, and what's so fun is that they're focus designation, and so that means that they don't really like me because I'm an ABC. They're an ABC on their report card. They didn't meet their subgroup IEP goals. So most of my schools are IEP, but then they like me because I give them money. And we can spend that money to help support. So I get to go to schools and talk to experts like you and instructional leaders and special ed leaders about what we're doing for those kids and how we're going to grow them and close that gap. So that's a little bit about me. So we're going to start over here. No, I'm kidding. We're not. And you have to laugh at my jokes because they're all lame because I'm middle school. And they're all funny to me. So we have that student. There's a reason why you're here. What's your why? Why are you here? Why this session? Because I'm competing with another big session. I mean, the superintendent has to go talk to kids. So, but why did you choose this session? What's your why? Okay. That's not really his name. We don't break FERPA, right? that's code for something or someone, right? I'm with you. Yeah. Okay. Very good. So what's your why? What's your why?
I'm just laughing because I know who she's talking about.
That's awesome. So, okay, we're moving this William up. I got it. Okay.
There's a new one every year.
There's a new William every year, or a Princess William, right? We don't want to discriminate. It's not just boys. So, what else? Why else? What else is your why? Why are you here?
There's not really a super great social safety net in the community where I work in. I'm honestly probably the state or country as a whole, and so I work in high school, and so I have the 9th and 10th graders, and it's kind of like the last ditch effort to get them to have a place in society before they're sort of thrown out into the world all alone.
Sure.
And so we have a very small faculty, and so sometimes it's kind of overwhelming if not one of us can seem to reach somebody.
Right, because we know what grade do kids really start dropping out at?
Probably so. I don't know. Literally or mentally?
When do they really start dropping out? Middle school. 6th and 7th grade mentally. You had me. You were on to me. Yeah. 6th and 7th grade kids start mentally dropping out. By the time they get to her, they're already done. They're done. We've got to catch them earlier and earlier and earlier. So how do we do that? Right? So what's your why? Somebody else.
Well, obviously, if they're acting out and they're being a William, they have an issue.
Okay.
No, I mean an underlining problem.
Sure.
They've not developed a certain skill in either reading or math or whatever, and they're frustrated and mad. And forget you guys, my parents are making me come every day. They're pissed off because I have to be there. So
we're online
you have
streaming.
to reach them.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's right, and kind of putting up that wall, aren't they? So, and you're right, they don't have that coping skill. They haven't learned that coping skills, and we're going to talk about that today. Are we teaching behaviors at the beginning of school year? And I use a lot of personal stories, and I'd love for you to share your personal stories, because really, the answers are among you guys, not me. I just get to online stream it and be visible, but you guys you really are the answers to what's going on. So hopefully you'll leave here feeling like, okay, I got this William, I can handle this, and this is how I'm going to move forward with my William or my Princess William. Okay, so you have a pad of Post-it notes at your table, and you have friends behind you. If you guys would go ahead and take 2 Post-it notes. I'm going to flip to the first slide, because all I have to say is these are the Learning Forward standards that are being addressed today. And then we're going to go right into our agenda. While you're getting your 2 Post-it notes, make sure your friends beside you, behind you, have some as well. And I have more up here if we need some, so that's not a problem. So today, we've already kind of formed a class community, a class discussion. We've talked about our why. Harry Wong, have you heard of Harry Wong? Okay, good. So the first days of school, right? Lived by it. That was my Bible. Even as a middle school teacher. Stoic, have we heard of Stoic? We kind of get a little bit more quiet, but I see a few peppered yeses in there. Okay, good, I'm glad. So we're going to talk, have you heard of Dr. Sprick? So this is his book. And you can pass this around. Don't hog it, okay, table? I'm just telling you. So we can pass this around, write out down the title. It's Interventions by Dr. Sprick. Great resource. Specific behaviors and intervention strategies, some things that have worked for me, some things that have worked for schools. I've got stories galore. And then some resources at the end. I've set a timer on my phone. That clock is behind. So, and I like to talk, so it's terrible that there's not an on-time clock. But if you feel like I need to move on because I can't tell the time and I'm not going to carry my phone, watch the time and tell me, lady, move on. Okay, so just let me know. It's okay. You can be that way. Even though we're online streaming, you can bully me on there. Okay. All right. So our objectives. Have an open discussion about our current reality. I want you to talk to me. I want you to be engaged. This is your presentation, okay? strategies and tools that can be implemented to decrease disruptive behaviors, what works, what doesn't work, the why behind it. I think the why is the most important. All right, does everybody have a sticky note? At least 2? Fantastic. All right, so on your first sticky note, you're going to do a quick write. I want you to finish this simile for me. Classroom management is like because. Okay, we don't need that. That's cute. Classroom management is like because. Nope, you're good, you're good. Couple more seconds. All right, couple volunteers. Classroom management is like because. Herding cats because the kids are crazy.
A variety show because every classroom is a different situation.
A variety show because every classroom is a different situation. Awesome. Yes?
Pulling taffy, this is more for older people, if you've ever pulled taffy. Because it's sticky, it takes into account temperature, it affects everyone, and it's a big mess if you drop the ball.
Ooh, very good. You got some oohs and ahs. All right, somebody else. Couple more, couple more. Yes?
I had like crowding animals at the zoo because students have different wants and needs and you have to get them all going in the same direction.
Absolutely, and meet those needs and have them learning and meet your standards and make sure you're getting through everything, right? We'll talk about that a little bit too. All right, very good. One more, one more. Give me one more. Yes, ma'am.
Classroom management is like a night out with the girls because sometimes everyone's on point and it's incredible, and sometimes everything goes wrong and no one remembers a thing.
That's really good. I like that one. That's awesome. All right, very good. So classroom management, and it can look different. I love the point that she made was it's going to look different for every class, especially at the secondary level. Now, our elementary friends, we have our kids all day unless they're transitioning in the upper grades to teachers, but it's still going to look a little bit different for you year to year because you're going to have the different kids, different personalities coming in. For me, it was different per class. I had 2 direct instruction classes, one at 8 o'clock and one at 1:30. Right? So my 8 o'clock didn't talk to me. My 1:30 came in hanging like monkeys off the wall. So it looked different. The way I managed the classroom was a little bit different. The way that we interacted was different. Okay? Doesn't mean my expectations were different. Learning expectations were the same. Okay? All right. On your next post-it, on your second post-it note, I would like for you, if you have a question, write down a question in regards to classroom management and behavior issues, and hopefully we can address those throughout. I set the timer for 45 minutes to leave 5 minutes at the end to kind of address questions. If you don't have one, that's okay. Put them at the end of your table. I'd love to come around and to see them and maybe hopefully address them, or you can ask them out loud, but it just gives you an opportunity to kind of be engaged, and I'm addressing your needs as well. So if you'll just take a second to write down a question that you might have or a concern. So earlier we talked about the why that you're here. Why is classroom management so important in our everyday practice?
Because if you're not managing your class and keeping them somewhat on task, they're not going to learn anything.
It's going to kind of be crazy, isn't it, if we don't have some kind of procedure, order, right? Okay, anybody else want to add to that? Why is it important to have classroom management?
Sets the tone.
It sets the tone. What else does it do for our classroom?
Kids know what to expect.
The kids know what to expect. I don't know who said that. It came out from over here. Thank you. The kids know what to expect. Absolutely. They know that there's a continuum. There's an expectation that is to be met. There's a structure. Absolutely. So it kind of sets the tone. For me, it created a classroom community. We were a family, you know. So my direct instruction classes were in a conference room. I think they just forgot to give me a regular room, but it's okay. And we had 12 kids, so we had just enough room, and we're sitting like this. I'm like, so today we're going to learn about, but it was great because the expectations and procedures were set, and we were in close quarters, and we were like a family in there. And it does set that kind of tone, that community tone. All right, have you guys heard of John Hattie? Kind of, maybe? Okay. I forgot to ask. Raise your hand. Are you an elementary teacher? Okay. Middle school? High school? Administrators? One administrator. Ooh. One district administrators? One. You see how low her hand was? She's like, coaches? Parents? Nurses? Counselors? Perfect. See, I didn't forget you.
No. I mean, we're all of those things.
Well, we are. But I had a parent in one of my sessions, and I forgot to say parent. She was like, parent. I'm like, yes, parents, exactly. And it was my family engagement. But anyways, it was bad. Yeah. It was the first day, you know, it's all right. Okay, so John Hattie did this multi-analysis study of what exactly has an impact on student learning. So we're looking for whole number 1. And here's what he came up with. Teacher credibility, 0.9 effect size on student learning. Just the way the students view and respect you and what you know has a 0.9 effect on student learning. So what happens if that student doesn't think very much about you? They're not going to be learning not a whole lot, right? Teacher-student relationships, 0.72. What about that student that's right there under your skin and you're like, all you can do is be like, hi. Right? We have some of those. But we don't have that relationship with them, then I'm losing her in class. Classroom behavior. We talked a lot about the impact of that William, or that Princess William, and the behaviors and how it impacts everybody else. That's what that is. 0.68. That's why classroom management is so important, to have that structure. Classroom management, 0.52. Teacher expectations, 0.43. I had one expectation. I didn't even call them a rule. It was be respectful. That's it. Is that respectful what you're doing? You just rolled your eyes at me. You think that's respectful? You can do that in middle school when you have a relationship with them. What does respect look like? What are your expectations? Reducing anxiety. Do you have kids with anxiety in your classroom who might not be on an IEP? Who kind of slip through the cracks like my daughter? And what do we do to resolve that anxiety? 0.4. Decreasing disruptive behavior, 0.34. Class size, 0.21. What are we doing to kids now? Just more, 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 more. A teacher told me yesterday that she's got a classroom fit for 25 and she's going to have 35 kids in her Spanish class. I was like, okay, so I need you to go home and get a big bottle of a drink. Wine. Okay, but really, class size, the impact of class size on our kids. That's so powerful. But I love the teacher credibility and the impact that you have on those kids walking into your doors, no matter what they bring to us every single day. It's huge. So how do we build those relationships? How do we let them know that we care and hold them to that high expectation? What are some things that we do? I ask a lot of rhetorical questions. If you want to share an answer, that's great. I'm just trying to think out loud and maybe hopefully help you kind of think and make some ideas. So we're going to talk about some pre-intervention strategies. We're going to start with Harry Wong. Harry Wong was my friend. Not really, but his book was. And he said from his book, student achievement is solely based at the end of the year directly related to the degree to which the teacher establishes good control of the classroom procedures in the very first week. Now, my high school teacher friends in here are going, yeah, I cannot take a week to do procedures. Yes, you can. Because what happens if I preload all those procedures and I set those expectations early? What happens in the long run?
Saves time every day.
Saves time every day. I'm not quit hitting her with the pencil. So today we're going to do I said quit hitting her with the. We're going to talk about molecules. I'm not losing that instruction time, right? And so I've set that procedure. I've set that expectation. At my school, when I was teaching, we didn't even give out textbooks until we had the kids for 10 school days. I didn't start anything standard-wise, really, most of the time until about Labor Day. And we started about middle August or so. I set those routines. And this was 7th grade. And we practiced those routines. We practiced coming into my classroom. We practiced getting stuff off the shelf. Remember, I'm in a conference room. We practice, why are we up out of our desk? This is why we can't be up out of our desk. Things like that. We practiced, all the school things like that, and we'll talk more about procedures and stuff, but I had to practice those things. Where do I hand in paper? All of those things. With 7th graders, yes. In my co-teaching class, I had 37 kids in that class. Half of them were on an IEP, and the other half were on the football team. So it was like a big IEP class, right? We're practicing procedures, walking in, because boys, middle school boys, ooh, baby, right? Or smacking each other and high-fiving and jumping and all that, right? So we practiced those procedures. The best role model that I had for practicing procedures, I got to co-teach with a coach, geography, and we were in intervention class, and he was a Marine. He was a drill sergeant. You know where I'm going with this, right? And those kids would come in, and he had a big room. Like, his room was big. He got in trouble for it, so he wouldn't let me do it, but he would play football with his boys in his room. Like, it's that big. It was amazing. And so the boys would come in and play and goof off, and he's like, no, everybody up and out of the room. Then they didn't listen. They thought it was stupid, being 7th graders. I said everybody out in the hallway! Went drill sergeant. But making sure that it was just a loud voice, it wasn't an angry voice. You hear the difference? My kids knew when I was mad. Do you know why? Miss Cypher's mad. Okay, so setting those procedures. I got through everything in my direct instruction with my students on an IEP before testing because I did this. So it is possible. High school teachers, comments, questions? Yes?
I guess, so I really would like to do this. I've never done it before, but
yes.
Most of the teachers that I've admired in my career have done that.
Yes.
My concern is that I do work with a number of people who don't really emphasize procedure in their class and they don't really emphasize manners. And I'm just curious if anybody's kind of had to, because like they have me 1 hour a day and they have the other guy 5 hours a day.
But you can only
had that experience and had some success with saying, well, in this classroom, this is how we do things, and if they're able to.
You can only control what you can control.
Right.
I can't control that teacher down the 2 doors down, I won't say the name, FERPA, I won't say the name, it was a little more lax. And so, yes, but when we come into my room, that's why that relationship is so important, because when you come into my room, you know I love you, and we're going to learn today, and my expectations are different, and we're not going to behave like that in my classroom, period, the end. You don't hold that, what they're doing, on your shoulders.
And our kids definitely behave differently in each
Yep.
classroom because of expectations.
Yeah,
Yes.
I feel like they already do. It would just be a question of formalizing.
And I think that in Florida, we forget that, especially like I teach 6th grade, 7th grade. This is the first time some of these kids have had 5 or 6
Yes.
or 7 teachers
Thank
ever,
you.
and they don't know. Every
That's right.
teacher wants something different. And
That's
we
right.
all have kids that they're afraid to turn in their paper because they don't remember where to turn it in at.
Right.
That's right.
If you don't do those things
That's
at
right.
the beginning of the year.
What a great point. Another thing that you can do too is you can, is your school a professional learning community, a PLC?
We're hoping to be.
Okay, so put that hope into overdrive and make common expectations. So you're 10th grade,
Right.
make a common expectation of 10th grade. This is what our common expectations are. Individually in your room, you can have individual expectations, absolutely. But the kids knowing that there's a common expectation among 10th grade. This is how we're going to walk in the hallway. This is how we're going to treat each other. We're always, you know, and you're a united front over those expectations.
I like that idea. Opening it up.
Yeah.
And it's possible. I mean, it's possible. I have,
Mhm.
I'm going into regular ed, coming out of special ed.
Okay.
by the way. And
Welcome
so-
to the dark side.
Yeah. But the expectations, I am like that drill sergeant. Like that's how I was. Like my kids knew, you opened a book, you sat at one of my tables, and you took up space in my room. You better be working.
That's right.
And I could get stuff done in 5 minutes that a teacher has spent
That's right.
days in the classroom trying to get this kid to do.
That's right.
But they knew.
Mhm.
If I was in the hallway, I pulled you out in the hallway, they were like, oh.
Yeah. Another thing that will happen is some of my more high maintenance kids, especially my boys with this teacher, I went to that teacher and I was like, hey, I know that he is just a hassle, just giving you a hard time. I want to talk to the parent. Would you care if he just came to my room and did your work? That like released her from that pressure. It released my student from that stress. And he got his learn on.
Yeah, I've done that.
And the parent was happy. And so instruct as long as the student isn't impacted and their learning's not impacted. So, but start with the common expectations. Yeah, great question. Great feedback too. Anybody else want to chime in? Yes.
I co-teach at the high school, and the thing is, yes, every classroom's different. You just have to set your tone for you, because my students, regular or special ed, or my Marshallese, or whatever's in that classroom, we have multiple. I walk into the room and they know what's expected from me.
Yeah, they know.
So it doesn't matter, even if I had to go sub or sit in a room, those kids knew me well enough, they knew what was expected.
Great point. Yeah, if I set my tone and I followed through with that, I ran our ZAP program after school, and kids would walk in, they'd see me, oh man, because they just knew this was the expectation. You know, she expects us to do what we're supposed to do. No, you're good.
I do think that you need some common expectations. That, you know, I have a totally different personality than the teacher down the hall and
Sure.
my teacher. So I can't be them.
Absolutely.
So my expectations are gonna be different.
That's right. That's right.
It's just like having divorced parents. Kids know not to
It
do with one parent, you know not to do with that parent.
That's right.
All the time.
Sure.
They learn
Absolutely.
differently.
Absolutely.
It's really good to have different personalities.
Mhm.
Because, you know, like if you're in a team like we teach, you know, 6th grade team, you need the heavy, and then you need the mothering one.
That's
and
right.
You need the,
You do.
you know, the more rambunctious one. And so we do a good job of balancing each other out
Yeah.
in that aspect. And
Yeah.
so you can really meet all of their needs.
Yeah.
If you do that. And if I know, like if I have a trouble with a kid, but I know another teacher has that connection with them, I don't have to send them to him, but I can say, hey, can you talk to them? Or I'll have to just come in and
Absolutely.
say, I don't know how you can behave. And it's, let me tell you what I do, and then they can try that.
That's exactly right. And then you become a resource because there is that relationship. Yeah. And the other teachers will see it and come to you. That's perfect. And I loved your point too. as 6th and 7th graders, even as kids new to high school. I mean, I think about the 8th graders, you know, going into high school. Do they really know the appropriate behaviors for high school? Because they're still young. And, you know, I was never a good 6th grade teacher because I always made 6th graders cry. And it was like, it kind of became a running joke. Yeah, I mean, yeah. And so that's why I was stuck in 7th grade, because I wasn't quite the hard champion that the 8th grade teachers had. And so we've really got to teach those behaviors and what that looks like in the middle school, junior high setting, in a high school setting, because it's very different. So Harry Wong, that goes straight into it. You've got to model it, no matter how silly we feel. You know, secondary teachers kind of feel silly practicing all these procedures and going through things, but if you believe in it and you model it and you expect it, then your kids will too. And no matter, I mean, you don't need to feel silly. You don't need to feel like this is too below them. But practicing, modeling, rehearsing, restating, and reinforcing it until it becomes a habit and routine, and not just at the beginning of the school year, but throughout the school year. If something happens, you know, we're over the honeymoon period after Labor Day, right? End of September, football season's in. You're practicing those routines still. After fall break, especially, we need to be practicing those things and follow through with your expectations. If they're out of sync or they're out of routine or something disrupts the class, then I'm losing my thoughts here because I'm getting ahead of myself. We address it immediately. Okay, so it's not just a beginning of the year thing. Some procedures to practice. These were just some that stood out for me. Entering the classroom. I had a really small classroom. My kids couldn't come in skipping. They had to go in one at a time, or they would hit the trash can, or they'd hit a desk. What does that look like? They couldn't come in yelling at anybody. I greeted them at the door. End of period dismissal. How many of you guys have a bell that dismisses your kids? Okay. I had a bell. My bell did not dismiss my kids. I dismissed them. Have a blessed day. If their tush wasn't on the blue, then I waited. Man, sit down, supper's waiting. Come on. And they would get onto each other because that was the expectation. Participating in class discussion. Do they need to raise their hand? I tried it with 12 kids that always want to talk. I just taught them we need to wait until they're done talking, and then we're going to talk. And as soon as they would talk over each other, talking. And they just knew my hand signals. Now, in my co-teach class of 37, they had to raise their hand. Okay, you're good. When you need a pencil, do we provide pencils for our kids? When a student is absent, what's your procedure? Do you practice that procedure? My procedure was I have an absent folder right there on the bulletin board, and you had to talk to a peer before they could talk to me. Why? Because I taught them responsibility. It's their grade, not mine. It's their learning, not mine. Okay, and they're probably going to get better instruction from their peer than from me, right? Because they've done it. They're going through it. What's your procedures? Working cooperatively. I had a teacher tell me, I asked a group of teachers, do you do group work? And they're like, no. I was like, stay calm, Janelle. Why? Oh, they behave badly. And I was like, stay calm, Janelle. Are we practicing those group work procedures, putting kids in groups, things like that? Are we practicing those things? How are we grouping our kids? If we're in a big class, are we doing a heterogeneous, multi-ability, kids on an IEP and 504 and struggling learners? It's like they've got sonar radar onto each other. I know you struggle, let's team up, right? They all just kind of come together. So we want to make sure that those groups are multi-ability. In my direct instruction class, I usually let them pair up with whoever they wanted, but then sometimes I would control it, and then sometimes what was really fun was I put them with somebody they were in a fight with. And then they'd get really mad. I'm like, that's okay, you can be mad. This is real life. Because how many guys work with somebody you don't like? It's okay, you can raise your hand. You're just on camera. It's all right. Okay, right? So what does that look like? These were just a few of the ones that really helped maintain a good classroom, positive classroom community. Is there one that stands out for you that you practice that's not up here?
I make them practice getting their notebooks, like you said earlier,
Yeah.
and putting them away, because
Yes.
that's when chaos ensues.
It is.
They're all trying to do that.
Yeah, especially in middle school, because then they're like wanting to touch boys want to touch each other and razz each other and knock each other out. It's kind of funny, but at the end of the day, my question to you is, what hill are you willing to die on? Is it that big? Some teachers, they don't have a pencil. Well, I guess you need to go to detention. For me, honey, there's a pencil right there in that drawer. You know where it is. If I got it back, I got it back. If I didn't, I didn't. It wasn't a big deal. But my principal, my leader, always asked, is that a hill you're willing to die on? Is it a hill you're willing to die on? I mean, you can get pencils donated, you know. But what's your battle? It's kind of the same thing. Pick your battle. What's going to keep the instruction going? What's going to keep that positive climate in your classroom? Anything else you'd like to add? We're going to go into Stoic. All right, Stoic, here we go. Dr. Sprick. S stands for structure. T stands for teach. O stands for observe. I stands for interact. And C stands for correct. So on each of these slides, these are straight from Dr. Sprague. He's got some really great guiding questions. And so I wanted to share those with you. So the first one is the structure of your classroom. So the structure of your classroom, Dr. Sprague says, can you get to all areas of your room quickly and efficiently? So I love this room because I can get to, well, except for the people along the wall. They're kind of messing up my game plan here. Just kidding. But I can get in between all the tables. I can see everybody's work. There's nobody up against the back wall. In my little conference room, I could get in between everybody. In my co-teach, we didn't have any desks up against the wall. We had a corner room, so it was big, it was nice. And the kids we had a center aisle, and then the kids were facing each other, but the back desk wasn't against the wall so that we could walk in between. And it was great because then we would just be co-teaching, and she'd be over there, and I'd be over here, and I'd be standing, and the kids would be like, what are you doing? Like, kind of always on edge, right? But you get the best data. Some people are writing notes, and you know who's breaking up with whom. You know who's not taking notes. You know how they're learning, what they're doing, so you're constantly taking informal data. So can you get around your room quickly and efficiently? Can students access the areas and materials quickly and efficiently? In my small room, it was a little difficult. The bookshelf was in the back, so as soon as we started class and we were in our desks, that's it. We had to get our stuff as soon as we walked in. That was a hard thing to get them down, to come in and get their stuff immediately.
Just so you know, we got about 13 minutes.
Okay. Really? No. All right. It's the way to put a downer on it. It's the class period.
Such a good flow.
I know. It's the class period scheduled to include consistency, variety, and opportunity for movement. Marcia Tate also says that our kids should be moving every 7 minutes. Every 7 minutes, and every major concept should be connected to a movement. Okay? That's research-based as well. Structure. Have your classroom expectations been defined for instructional activities? So for your group work, for your independent work, where do I hand this in? What are the expectations for this assignment, especially assignments that take over several days? I broke up my class. We started every day with a class meeting and bell work. So the first 10, 15 minutes, I'm gauging, have you eaten breakfast? Did you get in a fight at recess? What's going on? Those kinds of things. Setting the tone for class. And then the next 15 minutes was direct instruction. Hey, what have we been doing this week? What we're going to do today, applying it. The next 15 minutes was independent time, or they could work in pairs, and then I did closure. So I broke up my class. So thinking about your area of subject area, how do you break up your class? What might that look like for you? That's what worked for me. So that's structure. Oh, I have one more, sorry. Have clear expectations of transitions of activity between activities. Have they been defined? When they can move, where they can move. Some teachers, they're not. I've had teacher friends where they've got tape at their desk and the kids can't go past that tape. So if that's an area that they can't be in, then you've got to practice that for them, because if they cross that tape and you haven't set that expectation, you can't get upset, right? And make sure that the expectations that you set for them are something that you can follow as well. All right, teach. Teach students how to behave responsibly in the classroom. Have you created lessons that explain these expectations? And have you taught them explicitly? Have you taught this behavior? Remember, we teach kids, we don't teach content. We teach kids. The content, we teach kids. Kids come first. Are we teaching the behavior? Are we teaching them how to behave? Have you created lessons that teach routines and policies? As soon as my kids came in, the bell work was always up. If the bell work wasn't up, man, it threw some of my kids for a loop. Cyber, where's the bell work? What am I supposed to do? I don't understand. What's the bell work? You know, it stressed them out because that was the procedure. That's how smooth your class should be. If something's out of order, they should be stressing out. Okay. Do you provide teaching and reteaching and enrichment activities? If I'm walking around the room and I can get to everybody, then I'm taking informal data through observation or through a ticket out at the door. I'm taking in that information. I know how to gauge my lesson for the next day. Observe. So do you circulate? Are you friendly? Do you smile before Christmas? Right? Do you take data periodically? All the time. And I'm not saying, you know, my elementary friends, they've got their little checklists and X's and O's, and they were fabulous. It was like, whoo, over my head sometimes. I was like, you got way too much going on here. So, I mean, I can write a note and be like, you know, Sally really didn't get this. And neither did Devon, and so I'm going to work with them tomorrow. And just make a note for yourself, because you know you're going to be drinking that night, and you might not remember after a glass of wine. I'm just saying. So I had to write those things down, because I wasn't going to remember it. But taking that data constantly is really important in guiding your lessons, guiding your expectations. Questions so far? We're halfway through that. Interacting with students positively. Do we use the student's name? My kids loved when I said sir. My boys loved it. And I had nicknames for all of my kids. And they usually helped me make their nickname, but sometimes not. And then they learned to love it. But they loved sir. They loved when I called them Mr., their last name. Loved it. Are you using age-appropriate, non-embarrassing feedback? That's probably my weakest area, especially since I had good relationships with my kids, because I used a lot of I could use sarcasm with my kids. And so we want to be careful that we don't cross that line, that it's not embarrassing. And sometimes I did model, hey, that's not respectful. What can we do to make it respectful? Let's help this student out. That's okay to do. We just don't want to be embarrassing. And do we interact more frequently with every student when it's only positive or only when it's negative? Do we have those kids that we only talk to when it's negative? And that's an important point in my co-teach class. Did I only talk to kids that when they were misbehaving? I hope not. Sheesh. All right, interact. The last one is correcting calmly. We want to make sure that we're correcting consistently, that we're following through. We want to make sure that we're doing it calmly, that we don't have a raised voice. If we need to take 10 seconds for ourselves and be like, okay, I'm going to deal with this in a few minutes. I need you to work on this. do correcting immediately and briefly. It doesn't need to be a long thing. The other thing that's really important is that we're respectful about it, but once we've talked about it, addressed it, it's over. Because I can't have Malcolm in my first hour of direct instruction and then go to co-teach and be like, man, you are such a turd in my class. You're just going to be on your own and co-teach. That's not how that works. It's I've addressed it, we're moving on. And that blew my kids away. And that creates a really great level of respect for you. That, oh, I get another chance. This isn't, I'm not a bad kid. It was a bad behavior. I'm not a bad kid, right? All right. Do you have a menu of in-class consequences that can be applied to a variety of infractions? I had a system, and none of my kids went to the office until none of my kids went to the office, unless it was like a federal offense. You know, they made me bleed, or they took a drug, or they whatever. But you know, you have your steps that you take. And then do you have a way to respond to different behaviors immediately? That's my timer, no! All right, building positive relationships. What I did was we had a classroom meeting every day. I got to know students on a personal level through their writing, through their sharing. I attended their games, their band, whatever they were involved in. And we, my students were a part of setting their expectations. I had one expectation, but then the classes, the reason why they were different is their definition of respect and how it looked was different in our classroom, because the makeup of the kids was different, were different. All right, so some intervention, positive behavior, intervention support, we kind of talked about that. It's a common expectation. It's rewarding positive behavior. It's not necessarily taking away from students. Does anybody do token economy in here? Okay, you do token economy. In a true token economy, you don't ever take anything away. You give and praise the positive behavior, what you want to see, and it's based on an individual basis. We were a PBIS school. I did student contracts with my kids. That's different from a behavior plan. I don't have to have parent permission to do a student contract. Honey, we're having some trouble in class. What I need you to do is I need you to not harass Alicia. I know she can be annoying. And so we make a contract. So what's it going to take? I'm going to bribe you. And with middle school, I could do this. And what are you willing to work for? And most of the time, it was hot Cheetos and blue Gatorade. All right, I can do that. We're going to go 5 days, and I don't want you to harass her anymore, okay? And in class, I'm going to reinforce that. Thank you so much for biting your tongue. I can tell it's been really hard. Okay, so I'm going to reinforce that, and then on Friday, I better go to 7-Eleven and get her hot Cheetos and blue Gatorade and give that to her. Okay, it was either that or they wanted Chick-fil-A because it was close. So I'm reinforcing the positive behavior. I'm replacing that behavior that I don't want her to do. Makes sense? Yeah. PBISworld.com. That is a great resource. You can put in any behavior. So let's say we've got a kid that is impulsive. I click on impulsive. This kid, I can't remember the behavior that I choose, and then it gives you a description of the behavior. This is what the student may do. Okay, so what's your name? Sherry. So Sherry, she's lashing out. She might be withdrawn. She's challenging me. Man, she is refusing to comply with my requests. And then it's going to give you tiered interventions, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. It's free. It's free. It's so good. It's so good. I'm sure y'all already, counselors over here, have already seen it, right? So, PBISworld.com. So what's in your toolbox? A lot of these we've already talked about, strategies that worked. We didn't talk about building relationships with parents. As a special ed teacher, I can't do anything without a parent. So I was making positive phone calls home. I also did a survey, and I sent in an envelope with a stamp on it so they could mail it back, so they weren't out anything. Hey, how's your kid at reading? What are your challenges? What can I do? What's a good time to contact you? Hey, are you going to come in for the IEP, or would you like to do it over the phone? I did several IEPs over the phone after dinner at 7:30. because that's what was good for those parents. And you know what? When I needed something, or they were in trouble with another teacher, or they weren't doing well in another class, they called me because I had that relationship, and they knew that they were going to be okay. And their child didn't get in trouble because they had that support. Okay, so greeting at the door, bell does not dismiss. Any questions, additions, concerns, feedback? Nothing? Well, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for attending, and I hope you have a great, great day. If you want my card or contact, I'll be happy to support you any way I can at your sites. Okay.
I'll take one too.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're welcome.
If we email you, can you email us a copy of this?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you'll just put in the email that you want the PowerPoint. Yeah.
Challenging behavior, right?
Yes. I didn't get to questions. Did I address your question?
Do you want them?
Well, no, I ran out of time.
No, it's
so.
fine. We talked
Did
about,
that help
we
with?
talked about them.
Okay. Did that help?
I mean, honestly, it's really similar to stuff that I did in, school.
Uh-huh.
But what I'm thinking is, it's like a lot of this is stuff that other teachers at my school need to hear.
Sure.
And
Sure.
a lot of them really differentiate instruction from behavior management, whereas for me the two are like inseparable. Like
Right.
if I'm teaching a good lesson, they behave well.
Right.
But also if I'm treating them with respect, they listen. And so a lot of them are like, well, like they won't sit down, they won't do this, they won't bring a pencil to class. And it's very much like basing it on the kids and blaming the kids. And so, I mean, I just took really good notes on it, and I think I'm just going to try to like bring that up, like you said, in PLCs and sort of try to change some people's thinking.
Right. Well, and if they're not bringing a pencil to class, why are we letting them in the classroom?
Well, we don't really have a choice, but like the thing is, I mean, I just
No,
buy
they need to go
cheap,
to the locker. They need to get it from a friend because that
I
was.
just buy cheap pencils and keep them in my room because
Yeah.
my thing is I don't want them to be moochers, and that's been a big problem in the past with my ninth graders is
Okay.
the one kid's parent is basically funding everybody. So I'm like, I have pencils for you. I will not get mad at you. Come
Right.
get one. But
Right.
my deal is like, and I'm like, you come get it for me before you go to math. My thing is just like, come do it before the bell rings. Don't tell me halfway through the lesson